welcome back to Opal and Mint. I am Ashley, and today I'm going to be using some watercolors that are a little different for this channel. I typically use professional watercolors or even student grade watercolors. Daniel Smith is definitely my go-to, but today we're going to be using kid watercolors, and not just kid watercolors. We are going to test out Crayola watercolors today, and I've already done the painting with it. So for this video, I decided to do it a little differently than what I normally do for testing out watercolors. I just wanted to sit down and paint something with these. I didn't swatch them beforehand. I didn't put them in 3D test. I just wanted to see how they would paint. So I sat down, didn't talk through it. I will like voice over now and show you, but I just wanted to sit down and try to paint something pretty. And it was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I expected the quality of the paints to be different than what I'm used to, but honestly, I've tested quite a few cheap, inexpensive watercolors at this point, so I was expecting them to be along those lines, but I think the thing that made these specific watercolors so bad, I don't know, so spoiler alert, difficult to paint with is they say, come on, focus. Ooh, it's dripping. Is it gonna focus? They say washable watercolors, and I don't know if that's what all Crayola watercolors say. I'm gonna have to look that up now. But you see the little bubbles on here? That's a little preview of what the watercolors look like. Just saying. I feel like this is more like soap than it is actual watercolors. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into these Crayola washable watercolors. I picked these up at, not CVS, Walgreens today. I went in to pick up some medication and I was like, hey, let's do a paint from Walgreens video. Let's do a Crayola video. This is basically what they had, is Crayola, and let's go ahead, turn the camera around and start painting. All right, so here are the watercolors before I use them, like all fresh and clean and pretty. I honestly was going into this thinking that it's gonna be like, I haven't used Crayola watercolor since I was a kid, but I was like picturing what they were like when I was a kid. And either I have a really bad memory or these aren't the same. But so yeah, I started out with doing a wash over the background, made a beautiful mint color, mixed some blue and green, because the green is very, very bright green and the blue is very bright blue, but when you mix them together, it makes a beautiful mint. So a nice, beautiful wash. I noticed right away the green, when I was digging into it, it was, had little pits, little holes into the watercolor when you started like using it. But I was like, okay, let's move on. And as I started mixing more colors together, I've tested a lot of watercolors that I've said felt soapy, and I didn't really know why it was. And there's been several different people in the comments, you know, giving different reasons of why that is. But none of them have been as soapy as these. I feel like these are straight up soap paint. Like, I feel like they're made for the bathtub, to like paint the bathtub. Like, so it's so sudsy. It's interesting. But anyways, I pressed on, I kept going. Another thing I found weird is I was trying to make a really pretty poppy red, because I was painting poppies, and mixing the red and the orange and then some yellow in it kind of made a brown color, which I didn't realize was possible. So yeah, I ended up just using the red. So I did struggle a little bit. I worked in layers and I wanted to see how it would do. Like, I painted this just like I would with my professional paints. I just wanted to see how they would do. I did start with wet on this background, so they did blur out a little bit, not an insane amount. And then I went in with thicker layers on top. I did eventually do like the drip background and everything. Like I did how I would normally paint these with professional paints. And I don't think it's the worst. It doesn't look awful. It's not the worst thing in the world. But it was definitely, I had to approach painting with these very differently. They just, you know, don't perform the same as what I'm used to. They perform differently. So they're definitely usable and you can paint with them. It just wasn't quite as enjoyable for me for these specific paints. I don't have a problem painting with inexpensive paints. I don't remember if I said at the beginning, but these were like $3 and something. They were almost $4. But they were definitely a challenge and it just was not quite as enjoyable of an experience. I was able to mix colors and make some beautiful colors. I did mix a black out of these because there's not a black. There's two different browns, which I found interesting. But I was able to make a black. But in the process, I made a very, very soapy black because I had to mix it up. I did try the brush once. It's very, very floppy brush. It doesn't hold its shape at all. And it worked fine. It does come to a fairly decent point, but it just wasn't my favorite. But for kids paint and kids brush, for a child to paint, I think this is fine. Obviously, that's what it's made for. So I'm not saying that you as a professional artist or somebody who's wanting to learn watercolor, I'm not saying that you should try painting with Crayola watercolors. This is just for fun. I just wanted to see what they were like and see if I could paint something pretty with it. And I think it's pretty. I don't think it's the best painting I've done. And I do think the experience of painting it was not near as fun. I think for me, and one thing that I push and stress on this channel is the relaxation and the enjoyment of watercolors as opposed to the outcome and result. Yes, I do want to paint something pretty and I do want to show you how to paint something pretty, but the more important thing for me is the relaxation of watercolors and just the mental health benefits you can get from painting with watercolors. They're so much fun. But this for me wasn't that. So I would not suggest you spending the $4 on these. For a child, they would probably be fine with that. Maybe. I don't know. And it all depends on what you're painting too. There are probably some things that these work wonderfully for, but just not my style of painting. They did thin down well and did light washes, and then I could do thicker ones. So it did work. It works. But yeah. So there is the poppy painting. I am curious if you are a regular watercolor painter and you have, a collection of watercolors like I do. Maybe not I know a lot of people like to collect watercolors too, so I'm not the only one. But I'm curious, do you ever go for cheap watercolors just to play around and see, or am I just crazy? Well, I know I'm crazy, but anyways, I hope this was enjoyable. It was, again, just for fun, so don't come at me with any technical nonsense for these. I know that these are cheap kid paints, and I just wanted to, sometimes you just need to experiment and play with different things. So that's all this was. But I will get back to a more professional paint testing video soon. I am hoping that Saturday's video will be my testing 14 different brands of sap green. I am still trying to figure out what all I want to do as far as testing for those. So if you have any suggestions of how I should go about testing these 14 sap greens side by side, please give me all your thoughts and help in the comments below. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already and you want to see our future videos, hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Really difficult to play with, to wash with. I can't work. I can't talk. I need a nap.